and welcome to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 168, and today's date is September 20th, 2013. And the title of this episode is The Fed Sees No Bubbles and is Not Forecasting a Recession. Déjà vu. And we've seen this before. We've seen it in 2008 where the Fed was out there telling us that everything was fine. They don't see anything. They're not forecasting anything. And here they are again doing the same exact thing. But we know better. We know what's really going on. Now, out in China, they introduced 5 gold and silver ATMs where people can go up to them, put their currency in there, and actually get silver coins or gold coins out of them. And we have to remember that China is purchasing tons and tons of gold. The same with Russia. And there have been talks and rumblings about China becoming the reserve currency, which will be backed by gold. And already we're seeing they're introducing ATM machines that dispense gold and silver. Now, Home Depot is going to drop 20,000 employees, which are part-time employees, and they're not going to give them health insurance anymore. Instead, they will be on their own, and they will go to the Obama exchange to get their health insurance. Now, we've seen this with many other companies. We've seen it with UPS, Forever 21. We're seeing it with Home Depot. Many companies have been cutting employees' hours, just like Trader Joe's, so they do not have to provide health insurance because it is very expensive under Obamacare. We've seen an example of this when the staffers who work for the government said, we cannot afford Obamacare. And it was $5,000 for an individual and like $11,000 for family. And they said, we cannot afford this. And Obama came in and said, don't worry. And they had a bailout where they didn't have to worry about the cost. Now, if they can't afford it, how does the government expect every other person to afford this monstrosity? They can't. And this is why we see businesses right now bailing on Obamacare. And we also see different hospitals starting to realize how expensive this is going to be. Cleveland Clinic now is cutting $300 million, and layoffs are looming because of Obamacare. What they are doing is they're trimming everything down, giving people early retirement, and those people who are not taking that, they will be laid off. And this is all because of Obamacare. We also see this in Vanderbilt University Medical Center, where they are laying off 1,000 individuals and slashing hours. And we're also seeing this in the Metro Health industry of Ohio, which has already laid off 450 people. And I understand that in the House they passed a defunding of Obamacare, but Obama said when that reaches his desk, he's going to veto it anyhow. So we'll have to see how that plays out. Now, under the Dodd-Frank Wall Street reform law back in 2010, American companies will have to disclose how their chief executive's paycheck compares with that of their average worker under the proposal. And they'll see, how far off these wages are. But what's going to happen here, and this report goes on to say, it means that many of the low-wage workers are going to be replaced by automation, and low-wage workers are going to be phased out. So this way, the chief executives do not have to compare their salaries with low-wage workers. And right now, what they're trying to do is automate and try to get rid of low-wage employees. So this law is kind of backfiring. And always when government tries to control every single aspect, business is always going to find a way around it, to navigate away from the law so they don't have to deal with it. And as the government continues to create more and more laws, businesses find new loopholes, new ways of getting around it. And sooner or later, you have thousands of laws, but they're not working anymore. And we're starting to see this right now. Now, Caterpillar's global sales have dropped. The total world sales down negative 10% right now, and this is the lowest sales growth since March. And again, the propaganda out there saying Europe, the U.S. Is doing very well. We're recovering. Housing is getting better. But the propaganda can just do so much, because when data comes in and shows us that businesses are not doing well, housing is not doing well, retail stores are not doing well, and we see all of this, it's very hard to believe what government officials are telling us. But then again, they just want us to believe them without checking anything. Now, there was a glitch in the Treasury auction, and it always seems to happen with Goldman. I don't know. And there's been quite a few glitches on the NASDAQ and throughout the internet, but they had a glitch where Goldman put in an order, and they were purchasing treasuries, about $30 billion worth of bills that mature in 3 months, and for some reason the order was left out. So what happened was the Treasury allotted Goldman more than what they wanted, and even though this breaks the rule of the Treasury, they allowed it, because their rule limits to 35% the amount of debt any one buyer can obtain in an auction. And so was this done on purpose? So more treasuries were purchased so the yields would go down, and they were trying to control this, and they could show that more treasuries were there were a lot of buying activity for the treasuries. It's just very strange that this glitch happened at this perfect time. Now, like the title of this episode, where the Fed does not see bubbles and not forecasting a recession or depression or anything like that, Bullard was out there saying that, yeah, back when there was a tech bubble, housing bubble, they were both no secrets. We knew about that. And it's always great when they, years later, when they're looking back, telling us that, yeah, they knew about this. But I hate to say this, if we go back to 2008 and we listen to what the Fed was saying, and prior to 2008, they were saying that the subprime has been contained, it's not a problem. Well, we know that's false. They also said they are not forecasting a recession, and he said this during 2008, and there was the recession of 2008, 2009, and forward. So, again, they were wrong again. They also told us that housing, because of the history, will not fall, and prices will not, decline. Well, they were wrong again. And right now, they're telling us that there aren't any bubbles. But when we listen to every other financial person that spoke about the crash of 2008 and saying that we were creating credit bubbles, housing bubbles at this time, they were correct. They are saying the same thing now. Treasury bubbles, the bond bubble. We're seeing the stock market bubble. We're seeing the housing bubble. We're seeing the student loan bubble. And this time, America and the world is worse off. Unemployment very high compared to what it was prior to 2008. Many people have no homes. The Fed is printing or creating money as fast as possible each month to buy up all that toxic real estate and to be the buyer of treasury bonds, because there is no one out there actually purchasing them. The only people that are purchasing are those countries that are run by the private Western central banks because they are told to do that. But it's really the same exact people who are buying the Treasury bonds. So this time, it's worse. This time, the market is hitting all-time highs, higher than before. This time, they're pushing housing market up with really no people actually pushing the prices up. People can't afford homes. Mortgage applications are plunging. Traffic to new home builders is declining. They're laying off thousands of people in the mortgage industry. This is not turning out well this time. The higher we go in the market, the harder we're going to fall. Now, there is a report out there saying Obama's DHS is seizing local power. This is part of Obama's executive order and the whole purpose of DHS. They want to have DHS as the central location and the ability to go into all the local areas and be the centralized power. And this goes on to say that the Department of Homeland Security under President Obama is demonstrating troubling signs the agency is shifting the balance of power away from local and state municipalities toward a centralized federal authority. And we are definitely seeing this today. The DHS has put its hands into many aspects throughout many aspects of immigration, cyber war, dealing with local police, and they're trying to move into every corner of what America does. And the reason for this is to completely control the American people and to be the police force of the U.S. government, which will override the local authorities. And they are doing this not to stop terrorism, because if you look at the DHS terrorism alert system, it is always blank. And when they talked about terrorism, they were talking about the American people as domestic terrorists. That's what they're watching. That is why they had no clue. Well, as we know, the Boston bombing was a complete false flag and set up, but they never reported on it. They didn't give any indication from 2001 all the way to now. When has any of these agencies actually caught a terrorist? I mean, I know they're buying thousands of rounds of ammunition. They're buying 2,700 tanks, armored vehicles. They have many officers who are going around and searching people. We have the 100 miles in from the border, as they're calling it, a constitution-free zone. But then again, they're having many drills, helicopters flying all over the place, shootouts in LA. But when have they actually stopped a terrorist? They haven't. They haven't done a thing. TSA, DHS, never done a thing. All they've done was spy on Americans, search Americans, and take away the rights of the American people. That is all they have done. And there's a report out there saying that counterterrorism program does track innocent Americans, and it has nothing and has done nothing to stop terrorism. Because again, that's not what it's about. And the records obtained by the ACLU do not show evidence of valuable counterterrorism intelligence. And we know this, that they do not, the DHS, TSA, FEMA, NSA, all these different programs are not set up for terrorism, because we know who the terrorists are. We know that it's the U.S. government creating these false flags to get the American people to do things they normally wouldn't do. And that brings up an example of a terrorist attack like 9/11, where they needed to start the war in Afghanistan. And how did they pull that off? Well, they had the World Trade Center come down. They blamed it on Al Qaeda, and they needed to get into Afghanistan, and they wanted to start that war. And so, what did they do? They said, that's where they're hiding, so we need to go in there. And guess what? The American people said yes, yes, yes. And then actually, people believed that this whole 9/11 was also linked to Iraq, and that's why we need to go in. We needed to go into there, and which was completely false. We needed to go into Iraq because Saddam Hussein was selling the natural resources, not using the U.S. dollar as the reserve currency, and the central bankers could not have that, and they needed to invade there, capture the natural resources, control the country, put the private Western Central Bank in there, and have them sell the natural resources using the U.S. dollar, and that's why they did it to every single Middle East country out there. What we're seeing now is the Pentagon, Obama, are funding and sending and training the Syrian rebels, and the military and other people are saying, wait a minute, I thought Al Qaeda was the terrorists, and the U.S. government says, oh, no, 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 we're doing this to the Syrian moderate army, not Al Qaeda, but they're doing this all in the open now, and most of the rebels have pledged now allegiance to Al Qaeda, and Al Qaeda is growing because the U.S. government is going to use this force for something other than what it's intended for. And what's happening now with the Syrian chemical disarmament deal is that Assad was out there saying that this is going to take 1 year to dispose of all these chemical weapons. It's going to cost $1 billion, and who is going to pay for this? And what country is going to come in and take the weapons? And right now, President Putin commented, and he said he could not be 100% certain that the plan for the destruction of Syrian chemical weapons would succeed, but everything we've seen so far in recent days gives us confidence that this will happen. And he really, is not sure how this is going to work out. And as we know, the John Kerry, Obama, or McCain especially, are all out there still pushing the propaganda that Assad used chemical weapons, and they have postponed a meeting right now, which was supposed to be held on Sunday, and we'll have to see if this deal goes through. Okay, now the U.S. Energy Department is launching a cyber offensive because what they're saying is the U.S. defense officials are saying that they need to be prepared for a cyber attack on the power grid. And they went on to say keeping the nation's energy flowing is vital to the safety and well-being of Americans, our economic prosperity, and modern society as a whole. U.S. defense officials have said cyber attacks and cyber security were emerging alongside terrorism as a top national security concern. The Defense Department has accused China of targeting its computers, and they are trying to get prepared for this upcoming cyber attack. And we do understand that there is a power grid drill that is going to happen this November, and they're going to simulate cyber attacks on the power grid. They are also going to simulate other types of like bombs and other things hitting the power grid, and we'll have to see if this is some type of potential false flag. Now, what's happening is these cyber criminals are using Australia as a main conduit for cyber attacks, and what they're doing is they're setting up and accessing servers in Australia, and they are called command and control, where they take over with malware, they take over the servers, and they use these servers to create attacks, into China, into other countries. And this way, and I've said this in other reports, what they do is they bounce it off many different servers, so you cannot tell where it is coming from, and one main conduit is Australia. And when the government says, "Oh, we know it was China, we know it was Syria, we know it was Iran," they really don't know exactly where it's coming from. And for all intents and purposes, it's probably the U.S. government doing these attacks, but they have no clue. All they know is where the last server sent the request and where the attack is coming from. So that is kind of misleading when they tell everyone they know exactly it's coming from China. And again, there is something occurring right now, and we can see all governments preparing. Russia has its fleet in the Middle East. The U.S. still has everything intact. The fleet, the troops, the base, CENTCOM, which is an underground base with 270 officers, everything is still there. And the Russian fleet continually adds ships, and it looks like they're, I said yesterday, moving into 11 ships going to be in the Mediterranean, because they realize eventually these central bankers, U.S. government, is going to start something. We do have Netanyahu coming over on the 30th of September. We understand we have the debt ceiling debate going on right now. We understand that the fiscal funding for the paid mercenaries is up on September 30th. What's happening is America is broke right now. They're taking money from the pension plans to fund all the expenses right now. The debt ceiling is held steady, and right now they are looking to raise the debt ceiling, even though Obama is telling us that raising the debt ceiling doesn't raise the debt. But since he became president, we went from 9 trillion all the way up to 17 trillion. And why would they have to raise the debt ceiling if it's meaningless, and why even have one? And why do they call it a debt ceiling? Because it's like a credit card. They reach their maximum limit on this credit card, and they're looking to raise the limit on the credit card for the country. And we all know what credit cards are like. And all this is starting to formulate into something, and something is definitely going to happen during this fall time. Or depending on the timeline, it could move into early 2014. But right now, it seems like they are planning for something to happen. They are planning a false flag event, because right now the American people and the Congress are not for any type of war, and this is what makes me more nervous than anything else. For them to really do something, they need to shock people and have it happen right at their front door. This is the only way it will work, and they know it. And now they are planning on something happening. And we understand that the Fed didn't taper at this point because, the economy is not where they want it, and, all this other BS that they give us, because the economy is fake. The Fed is the market. The Fed is everything. They're think about this. They are manipulating all the numbers: GDP, inflation, unemployment. They keep readjusting everything because it's not fitting in to what they wanted to say to the people. So what do? Well, they take GDP and they change it all the way back to 1929. Now they have a positive GDP. They change the calculation for unemployment. They don't count the people that drop off, because they are trying to paint a certain picture. And when they say they're waiting for the economy to get better, and it is getting better, it's completely fake. They know what they're doing. They know that they're creating this fake world that doesn't exist. And they know as they keep playing with the numbers, they will make it the way they want it. I mean, put it this way. If they really wanted to, they could make unemployment go to 6% if they really wanted to right now. What are they waiting for? They're waiting for something. They're waiting for the plans to be completely set up and ready to go. They can't do it at this point. It's not because of the economy. They're making the economy up. It's their numbers. It's their calculations. They're the ones who are driving the markets. That's not it. That's a bunch of BS. That's what they want you to believe. The stock market is completely controlled. They have plunge protection team, high frequency trading. They're giving all this money to the banks who are then pumping up the stock market. They're doing their best to keep this market as high as possible. They're doing their best to keep unemployment down. And they keep making excuses. Oh, 2 states were having a computer upgrade. That's why we didn't get those results. It was the weather. It's the seasons. It's this. It's that. We'll just drop more people off of unemployment, and now the unemployment rate goes down. They have created this world. If they really wanted to taper, they would have done it already. They could have made all the unemployment and everything go down the way they do it. And they already know if they do taper, the entire economy completely implodes on itself. So what are they really waiting for? Just let you some comment. What are they waiting for? They're waiting for certain events to happen. They're waiting for this war out in the Middle East. They need it to start. And now we have the Wells Fargo out there who they are predicting that there's going to be this fall a 16% or more drop in the stock market because they understand that this market is completely fake. And they are predicting this to happen in October timeframe. And a lot of people were talking about October 1st with FEMA stocking up on things, the October surprise, and all this other things. And now we see them coming out with this prediction, and they are saying the target implies that the market will drop 16% or more, and it will erase everything that the stocks gain after the year's first day of trading. And we can definitely see that something will happen, and we can see they are setting this all up for it to happen, and they are putting everything and planning everything right now. And we can see that not just this plan that they're doing, and it's taking shape because they understand that the entire market is fake, and they know it, like I said, and they need something. They need an event to help them out here because they really don't want to taper. Because then how are they going to say, oh, we tapered, but now we need to print more money? They need the event which allows them to create more money. Because when the event happens and the market falls, and this will be part one, it won't be a total collapse at this point. The markets will fall. And I've said this before in my other reports. The market will fall, and now, of course, they're using the propaganda telling you that the whole economy's getting better, everything's getting better. It will fall, and what they will do is they'll say, we need to increase QE, and that is because the rest of the world will realize what's really going on. Treasuries will start selling off. People will be getting out of the market. The market will start dropping. QE will have to be increased. People will be losing their homes. They'll have to buy more toxic real estate, and they will have to buy the treasury bonds that are being sold off. And we understand that this is what's going to happen. And we all need to be prepared and ready for whatever type of false flag that they throw at us. Listen, everyone, I will be doing a report on Saturday, so be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.